Welcome to Command Control Power, a weekly podcast hosted by 3 certified members of the Apple Consultants Network, drawing from over half a century of combined experience. We talk shop, interview vendors and colleagues, and share what we've learned while operating our technology consulting practices. This is Joe Saponare of CyMac, and my 2 co-hosts are Jerry Zigmont of MacWorks and Sam Valencia of the HCS Technology Group. Hey everybody, it's our 9th anniversary. That's right, we've been recording Command Control Power every week since June 2013. We hope you've enjoyed it. On this special occasion of 9 years running, we're trying a little experiment for the next month or 2. We have a great community of supporters on Patreon, and we really want to show them how much we appreciate their support. So this summer, we're airing new shows every week in the private patron-only subscription. Here on the public show, we'll re-air a classic episode from our catalog of almost 500 episodes, along with the occasional new show. For the freshest content, a peek behind the scenes, and more candid conversation about running our businesses, dealing with clients, fixing tough technical issues, and everything else you love about Command Control Power, we invite you to join us on Patreon so you don't miss any of this great content. Go to commandcontrolpower.com and click support. Pledge monthly, and you can instantly subscribe to the weekly patron-only shows right in your favorite podcast app. Once again, to join us on Patreon and get the latest patron-only episodes, visit commandcontrolpower.com and click support. We hope to see you there, and thanks for listening. We'd like to extend a very special welcome to some members of the Mac Admins Foundation, and I'll start with you, Tom Bridge, co-chair of the Mac Admins Foundation. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Hey, thanks so much, Joe. It's a pleasure to be back here on Command Control Power, and I can't travel anywhere without bringing friends. So I brought with me Rich Trouton, who is our treasurer.
Hello.
And I brought also Chris Dawe, who is our recording secretary.
Howdy, all. Good to be here.
Awesome. And Chris, I think you're a new voice to our listeners. We've had the pleasure of speaking with both Tom and Rich, but welcome for the first time, Chris. Welcome back, Tom and Rich. Great to have you guys.
Glad to be back.
Yeah.
This came up on our radar a couple months ago with, some things that we heard were sort of cooking in your worlds. The shorthand is talking about the Slack, and we often point our listeners to the Slack, which really means the Mac Admins Slack instance that you guys have been running for a number of years now. And, then recently, the big news is the Mac Admins Foundation, which is now superseding the Mac Admins Slack. And of course, we also have the Mac Admins podcast, which we enjoy. So do you want to take us back to the early days of starting the Mac Admins Slack instance and kind of how it developed in those early days? And we'll take us through to the present eventually with the Mac Admins Foundation.
Well, sure. I'll start there and then turn it over to my colleagues. But the Mac Admin Slack started in 2015, so a very, very long time ago, even in pandemic-adjusted amount of time. We got started in 2015, and Caleb Coy, who is now a support engineer at Conji and been a community member for a very, very long time, and serves as on our board as the chair emeritus. Started the Slack as just like hey, let's see what this Slack thing is all about. I remember those early days of Slack's marketing. They had this great video put together by the Lonely Sandwich people about how Lonely Sandwich uses Slack. And we're like, oh, this is really cool. So he put out the call and he was like, hey, let's invite a bunch of people, see if this thing is at all useful to us. And of course, here we are now, 7 years later, almost 50,000 accounts later. There are a ton of people out there using the Mac Admin Slack. And one of the things that we started to see was that, hey, we have a professional license for Slack, kind of gratis, handed to us by the wonderful people at Slack, because one of the folks at Slack who manages their Mac fleets kind of acts as our sponsor. Mm-hmm. And, we started to think about this last summer. That would be the summer of 2021 as it was a little bit of a burden because, we'd had some people switch jobs. The person who'd been holding the Slack license for us went off to work for a fruit company. We realized that maybe we ought to just be paying for this somehow. And we started to realize, to look and do the math and realized, okay, 5,500 active members times $12 or 12 months times $6.67 a month. And if you do the math out to that, it works out to be about 2 Ferraris. And we decided that like 2 Ferraris was a ridiculous amount of money to spend to not actually have a Ferrari at the end of the process. Right. And so what we started to figure out was like, hey, what are the best ways to get a discount on Slack? And it turns out the best way to get a discount on Slack is to be a 501c3 nonprofit. And so we started to put together a plan to become a nonprofit last summer. And here we are now. It's the middle of the summer as we record this. And it took us all of that time to kind of get the nonprofit up off the ground. And Chris, I'd love for you to share a bit about how we got this started and who we worked with.
Well, I think that it's hard to kind of go back that far. Part of our motivation for this initially was kind of this concept that the Mac admins as a community has really, in some ways, improvisationally jumped from venue to venue over the course of decades, right? We've been through email lists, we've been through IRC, we've been on and off Twitter, everybody was gathered on Twitter, and we landed on Slack as really the presence, I think, of conferences as part of the way that the Mac admins community kind of organized itself was really starting to take off. Conferences, for example, Penn State Mac admins, Mac sysadmin were really starting to come to the forefront of the way that Mac admins were kind of assembling and distributing information in an effort to help one another do one another's job. And we came to this sudden realization that, well, we are here kind of on the generosity of the company, and wouldn't it be a good idea if we could sort of stand up and take a little bit more responsibility for ourselves and start to create the place and actually fund the place where we were assembled. And from my background in theater work in Seattle, I had a contact in the arts community whose name is Andy Fife, ran a company called Fife Consulting, who specializes in the process of taking communities that have sort of self-organized in a spontaneous way and helping them transform into formal organizations. Because this really is, as Rich and Tom and I discovered, this is something that takes an incredible amount of specialized knowledge, paperwork, and time. And I think that Tom and Rich can probably attest to the most of that, having been the ones who spent the most amount of time, for example, filing paperwork with the IRS, working with banks in order to get us bank accounts set up, setting us up to be an actual organization with actual rules governing it that can feasibly come to the community and say, hey, would you give us some money because we have these things that we would like to pay for to benefit the community. And Andy came in and joined us and really spent probably 6 months of that time that we spent organizing the foundation just kind of guiding us and directing us and taking us from the typical Mac admins kind of tangents into what is the bad thing that happened in the Apple world this week, what's the good thing that happened to hey, guys, come back. We are building an organization here. We've got to stay focused because we're doing this. At least in terms of formal board meetings, we're doing this in terms of a couple of hours a week, aside from all the background work that was going on. And so Andy really made it possible for us in 4 months, 6 months, inside a year to do all of this work that had we been on our own, we probably would have taken 2, 3, 4 years and possibly given up in frustration.
6 or 8 Ferraris by that point. So
exactly.
Andy's assistance was just invaluable. If nothing else, we could ask him questions about, putting on my treasurer hat for a moment. He could answer some of our more esoteric questions about, if we do this, is this legal? That kind of thing. And he was like, he was fantastic with providing, the right advice when we needed it.
Just having somebody who'd spent a good portion of his career reading, rereading, consulting on the IRS code around these types of things was huge.
Yeah. And, just as someone who has I live in DC, so I'm surrounded by bureaucracy all the time. But, the amount of paperwork that it takes to fill out to become a nonprofit is not insubstantial. You have to fill out this form called the 1023, and every nonprofit has to fill it out when they incorporate. And it was, no joke, like a 50-page PDF. And it's not just enough to prepare the PDF and upload the PDF. You actually have to do it in multiple pages on a website. And one of the days was just Andy and I figuring out what exactly we're copying and pasting into the right fields and making sure that the system worked, because it was definitely creaky. But the whole process of getting there was not just, get all of the paperwork done. It was get all the paperwork done, hit submit, and then wait. The IRS reviews all of those applications, and it takes months for them to, go through that process. And so we hit March, and we were starting to get a little bit nervous because we'd applied in September. And we're like, oh gosh, is this going to happen in time? Are we going to be able to be okay here? Are we going to get our little rubber stamp that says, yep, these guys aren't crooks? Or at least we don't think they are right now. And, we went through that whole process, and all of a sudden we get a phone call from somebody at the IRS, because that's how it comes in, right? Like, it comes in as a phone call. I didn't get an email first. I got a phone call from a random number, and it's like, hi, my name is so-and-so. I work at the IRS. Please call me back. And so called him back, and then, spent, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 weeks going back and forth with questions on we don't understand what you do, and having to explain the Mac Admins Foundation to an IRS agent was certainly an exercise in making sure you have picked all of the right words, because you want to explain as little as possible on these calls, and so you've kind of got to go into the right amount of detail. And it was really exciting to get to explain to them, yeah, we're a professional organization. We're here for the benefit of the community. It's our job to make sure that there are plenty of new Mac admins so that, maybe Joe and Sam and Jerry can retire at some point, right? That's the whole goal, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we should talk about your mission a little bit. And actually, I think we should roll the tape back. At some point, Tom, I think you mentioned 50,000 people on the Mac admins Slack. Did I hear that right?
I think it's pretty close to that. I would need to go look and see exactly what the number is today.
I'm looking at it. It is, we have a convenient way of checking this in the About This Slack channel because everyone joins it. There are 44,425 folks in the About This Slack channel.
Incredible. Wow.
Amazing, and if you look on Slack's analytics, we're at 49,012. So there's some numbers here, up and down here, left and right. 46,000 of those accounts have been claimed, which means I think they've been logged into in the last year. We have about 5,100 or so people who are weekly active members of the Mac Admin Slack. And so that's somebody who has posted a message or reacted to a message or participated in a channel, public or private. And, that's a really huge community when you think about it. There's just a lot of people in the Mac Admins community.
Yeah, well, and good for you guys noticing that just this community is substantial, and what built up organically around Slack really needed to be stewarded into the future, because left unattended and at the will of some employee at Slack or whatever way the wind blows, that all could have gone away. I mean, one day you could go to log in and it's just down, and we don't have access to our community members.
It's not likely that we would go down all the way. Slack has a free mode, right? Like, we're all familiar with the free mode of Slack. There are certain other, for example, I work at Jump Cloud, and it's my day job. We have our Jump Cloud Lounge, and we don't pay for Slack, which means there are only 10,000 messages in the scroll back. Across all of the channels and all of the DMs. We figured out that if that were to happen to the Mac Admin Slack, we would go to about a 36-hour rolling chat log for the Mac Admin Slack in its entirety.
That's that just shows the scale. Yeah.
Yeah. So much of the kind of backlog of the chat contains the accumulated wisdom of the folks who are doing the work in a world where, in a lot of cases, it's not necessarily true that stuff is fully documented by vendors.
Yeah. I mean, you need to be able to search. Just last week or the week before, I was troubleshooting a really annoying time machine problem backing up to a network device. And I'm sure we've all kind of been there, and probably, everyone else in this call has ruled out time machine as a viable solution over the network. But I persist. And so I had this one instance that's been giving me trouble. It was through finding a reference from like maybe 2019 in the time machine channel on the Slack that led me to the solution, which was, ironically enough, enabling AFP and disabling SMB on the Synology. Who knows why it worked in this one instance? That's not our typical setup, but it was thanks to, having that scroll back, being able to search messages going back just a few years, to find what might seem to be like an obscure solution that did not turn up in my Google searching. And so there's some value right there demonstrated by the Mac admin Slack having this this historical data. I agree. I think it's like an accumulation of knowledge and wisdom in the community for many years now, 7 years and counting. And so it's just so great and reassuring to know that it is now protected and it's going to be there going into the future. So I mean, that's part of your mission, I think. Do you want to say anything more about the mission of the Mac Admins Foundation formally?
One of the things that evolved in our discussion was the idea of the mission, because at least in the very early discussions that we had in late spring, early summer of 2021, we were very much on the train of the first and foremost priority is that we need to save and preserve this Slack as a resource, and that's the most important thing. And I think we realized as we talked about it more and more that there was an opportunity to take a longer term, more expansive view and to try to do more than just kind of behave in sort of a, I don't want to characterize it as a defensive crouch, but please don't take my toy away is a little bit of a defensive crouch. And that's where, Richard, would you want to talk about that a little bit?
This is one of those things where the Slack, I think, really surprised us in how many folks have shown up to join this community, because this is one of those things where before the Slack, there was IRC. Before IRC, there were the email lists, like the Mac Enterprise email list, even going back to the 90s with the Mac Managers email list. But they always seemed, there were like a few hundred folks, Yeah. I think we had maybe 500 in IRC. We had, I don't actually know how many were on the email list, but it always seemed kind of like a small community. And then where did all these people come from? They started just appearing in the Slack, and it was like one of those things where, I remember we had business cards when we were, back in 2015, 2016, 2017. We had business cards that we were handing out at the conferences going, join these speakers and 2,000 of your fellow Mac admins in the Slack. And that today, that just seems like such a small number. But at the time, we're like, this is huge.
Yeah, totally.
But, one of the things that we started with the mission of, we want to keep this going. We want to keep it open and available to others. But also, one of our points of our mission is we want to keep it free. Free as in beer, where you don't have to, because there's other ways this could have gone. We could have been like, all right, we're setting up like a Patreon, and you get an invitation if you join the Patreon and you contribute so much money. But that seems wrong, where you're like putting up a paywall. So one of the things, and this is something we spell out in the mission, is that we want to maintain affordable access, free access, regardless of what our members are making or doing or whatever. We want to make this as free and open as we can.
Right. It makes it accessible to people that, may be working for a larger company and, would otherwise need to go through certain channels to get reimbursed for the cost or whatever. I mean, just putting up a barrier in general, is way different than sort of welcoming everyone and their knowledge and contributions, even if they are just there to ask questions. Sometimes in the asking of questions, it's actually helpful in the community as well. So that's a great mission. Kudos to you guys for kind of writing that into it, making it as accessible as possible.
We want to make sure that that welcome mat is always there. One of the things that I really treasure about this community is how kind it is and how welcoming it is. We have like 14 admins for the Slack, which seems like a lot until you're like, but they're watching over something with 40,000 people in it. And then you're just like, what the heck? How do we, that seems really small. But for the most part, our members are pretty good about self-policing, and they're excellent at being kind and civil with each other. And that's something we have written into the code of conduct, that we're going to be civil and respectful to each other. And by and large, people are. And that, when I think about it for the community of our size, that is amazing and that is wonderful.
It is actually incredible if you think about it, because it's one thing to ask your small group of people a question that's technical and might be over your head, but to throw it out to the greater community where you could feel like someone could come at you at a different angle when all you're doing is looking for help. I've never felt that way going out to the Mac Admin Slack and joining a new channel for the very first time that I wasn't following before and just posting a new question. And there's always been some kind of at least point in the right direction, not anyone looking to be negative in any respect. So I find that incredibly powerful as well, because it creates that welcoming community where people don't feel afraid to ask a question. I can't stress how important it is to get this word out there about what you all are doing, because a lot of people may not even know how this is free to them. You know what I mean? Like this community is there, and they might take it for granted, not because they choose to, but because they just don't know why it has been made available to them and why it is free for them. So this is very important to get the word out about what you all are doing out here.
Well, thank you so much, Sam. And that kind of takes me to a really important part of this, is that we can't exist without our membership. Obviously, as part of this process, we have, we looked at different models for financing this kind of environment. And we kind of settled on one pretty early, which was the NPR model. Here in the US, if you turn on the radio, usually on a frequency below about 92.5, you're going to find a radio station that is powered by donations. And usually, sometimes those are members like us. Sometimes it's organizations like the Sanju K. Bansal Foundation or the Annie E. Casey Foundation, or, all of these other different kind of orgs out there that are meant to provide grants to grant building institutions. And so what we started to think about was, well, who's our Annie E. Casey Foundation and who's our Sanju K. Bansal Foundation? We started to look around, and, we had a group of people that we really wanted to talk to. And, we opened our doors and talked to folks from, Jamf and Kanji and Simple MDM and Adigy and, pretty much anybody out there that is doing MDM work these days. And we had a lot of really, really positive conversations that came out of that. And we landed, 6, major sponsors for our launch date, plus 2 supporting sponsors. Our friends at Electrona, Chad and his team are amazing, and of course the gang at HCS Technology. So thank you very much, Sam, in part, for helping out the foundation. We wanted to try and make this a community-supported effort as much as humanly possible. And, for the next couple of days, we've still got the T-shirts available on sale. I think those goes off on July 9th. We'll make sure that when we do open those campaigns up again in the fall, folks can donate that way. As well as you can just join and be a recurring member of the Mac Admins Foundation. And you can go to our website, which is macadmins.org, and donate there.
Very nice. It's a great model. It kind of insulates you from possible sort of like corruption by more traditional kind of like sponsorship model where like you might be required to say certain things about the people that are supporting you, or, paint things in a certain light, or, sponsor reads and things like that. It's nice to just be able to receive that kind of, no strings attached level of support, not only from vendors who are an important factor, obviously, just due to their size and influence in the community, but also from the members ourselves, people who are benefiting from it and therefore are happy to sort of give back. I mean, it just feels very like equitable to be able to support an organization that we all have come to rely on. So I think it's clearly a great model. I want to say just congratulations to you all here today and the rest of your team for bringing this into existence. I think it's a hard thing to do. There's not a lot of glory in filing a lot of that paperwork, and exploring all the different possibilities of structures and things that you all probably went through. It's just necessary work to not only provide for this community, to support it into the future and to foster that ongoing. So yeah, congratulations for seeing this through to completion.
Well, thanks so much. And, I just really want to say big thanks to Rich and to Chris for all of their hard work too, because, I'm out here as the front man talking about stuff, but Rich is making sure cash makes it into the bank, and Chris is making sure that we're keeping ourselves organized. I also want to give a shout to my co-chair, who is Emily Kostlik-Whittle, who couldn't join us tonight, who has been an excellent partner in all of this, not to mention Caleb Coy, who has helped us with the kind of visionary leadership that we need to really get this off the ground. And, for folks who really want to learn more about us, you can go to macandmins.org/mission. That's a great place to kind of see the big tenets of this, because, we're really here to foster those communications, or those connections between MacAdmins. And we're also here to make sure that we can share knowledge and have resources as a community. But, another part of that is also our program Talking with Apple. Our friends at Apple, we had a great conversation with them early on. And they came to us with an idea, which was, hey, we're about to release these great new certifications. Is this something that you think that future MacAdmins should have access to? And so we were like, well, yeah, absolutely. And they're helping us with a scholarship program where the applicants for that program will have their voucher codes paid for by Apple. And that way we see more and more qualified MacAdmins ready to go do the work that we all do every day. And so those are the kind of things that we're going to be able to do as the foundation, is not just more training, but also conference scholarships. And we'll be excited to talk a little bit more about that as we go through this summer, with our plan to have the first conference scholarships online in 2023.
One reason that we're shooting for 2023 for this is that we were discussing it and we were looking at the calendar and we're going, well, most of the conferences this year are still virtual, and for the most part, they're still free. So, 2023 is hopefully when we're going to start seeing conferences go back to being in person, fingers crossed. And this would be the kind of thing where, especially for folks who, maybe their companies are like, I don't know about travel. I don't know about this. I don't know about that. We haven't really had to pay for this the past couple of years. Still be able to hopefully provide some deserving folks with the ability to go to a conference that they wouldn't otherwise.
If someone's listening to this and really wants to get involved or wants to contribute, what are you looking for? How can somebody who's really excited participate today?
That's a great question. And, I would say come talk to us in the MacAdmins Foundation channel on the MacAdmins Slack. And there are programs that we're working on that we're hopefully will have more information available soon, because, it's not just about providing training and scholarships. It's also about providing mentorship, because we build communities by building more MacAdmins. And we replace ourselves within our own communities by building more MacAdmins. And, I want to give a huge shout out here to a MacAdmin near and dear to my heart. Anthony Reimers at University of Calgary has had some really good conversations in public about, hey, I'm getting ready to retire. Is there someone ready to replace me? And those are the kind of conversations that we want to talk about as the foundation, so that we can make sure that there are mentorship pathways, that there are training pathways, that there are conference scholarship pathways for new people who maybe don't look like me, Rich, and Chris, to participate in the community and add their voices to our number. We are there. One of the great shows that I listen to every week is Make Me Smart on the Marketplace network of podcasts. And one of the things they say is none of us is as smart as all of us. And no community represents that better than the MacAdmins community, in my opinion. And so I want to make sure that there are plenty of great new voices out there to complement all of the voices who have been here for a long time.
Yeah, one of the things I love about the Slack is it seems to run on the philosophy of we all get along with a little help from our friends.
Yes.
That's well said. Yeah, I think, understanding and learning more about these other aspects of what this foundation will do is critical. And I saw something on the site as well that I was curious about, in that you have postings for volunteers. I know there's nothing specific necessarily on the site, but I was wondering if you guys had some thoughts onto, if someone were to sign on to be a volunteer, what you would be looking for them to do.
Well, here's actually something that we've started trying to reach out and see who wants to sign up and be mentors. But here's something else that we really want, and that is that we'd like the community not to just look to us for the ideas, because we don't have all the ideas. We are really interested in seeing, folks in the community come to us with ideas that we can just be like, that sounds phenomenal. Let's run with that. And because the board members are not going to be able to do everything ourselves. We just can't.
Yep.
But we really want to see those folks in the community who are really fired up about an idea step up, tell us about it, and give us like a structure, something that we can build with. And we've already had like one or two folks talk to us about that with regards to the mentorship program, and we're continuing to talk to them about it. But we'd love to see that kind of self-organizing stuff coming out of the community, where folks are like, I really want to do this, and I really want to take this and run with it, but I need some help, where we can say we can provide that little bit of help. Go run with that.
Yep. And, there are always going to be great ideas that we're going to want to talk through. One of the great ideas that's been brought to us is that, hey, there's this github.com/macadmins, which has a bunch of projects like Nudge, for example, that are, amazing community projects. And, they're out there like, hey, how do we get a code signing certificate for this? And so we're kind of talking with them, and we don't think that necessarily the foundation is going to be the right place to hold that code signing certificate, but we might be able to, make available funds to keep an organization alive that could do those things. And so bring ideas to us. We are more than happy to talk them through and find out good solutions. And if we can't figure out how it fits within the mission, maybe that's a place where we can figure out how we fit something, in through the side door. Or we talk a little bit about how we can fund an organization that may need to exist to handle some of those tasks.
Yeah, because some great ideas just need funding. And hopefully that's, of course, right now most of our funding is going towards let's get the Slack paid for. But hopefully as our fundraising is more successful, which would, as always, come from viewers like you, hopefully we'll be able to put some of those funds towards funding those great ideas.
Yeah, the potential there is pretty awesome too. Once you fulfill the, and you have just a reliable plan for fulfilling the kind of core mission. Being able to allocate funding to other projects and things. Just obviously it's just a lot of potential to direct toward those different projects. Nudge is a great example. I mean, I've used that, lately. I've kind of did a deeper dive a few months ago, and it's a great project. It fulfills a need that is there for a lot of people. And
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a perfect example of something that, grew up kind of organically, and maybe there is, maybe there's some benefit to even funding something directly like that, like funding some additional development or graphic design or new features or something. I mean, maybe not directly funding necessarily, because a lot of open source is just, people contribute because they enjoy it. But yeah, the ability to actually point resources toward a project and help to ensure its success, if that's one of the things it needs is funding. That's just great, to have that as a side benefit of the community that you're building. And it's so important. I mean, this is a community that grew up, very organically, when Apple was a scrappy upstart, and even all through like into the 90s, and kind of when I got started in this realm, they were the iPod company. People were like, oh, the iPod store, that was like when Apple was on the map for a lot of people. And we've been here in the background all along, just kind of talking amongst ourselves and kind of keeping that flame burning for Apple. And here they are, the biggest company in the world now. And we've still got that sort of community mindset of like, we're better together, better to cooperate than to, compete all the time. It's not a like, if I win, you lose kind of scenario. It's not zero sum in this community still, which is really great. And the fact that you've been able to continue to foster that kind of spirit, I think is really key to keeping everybody on that same page of like, we don't have to fall into the trap of cutthroat competition. We can support each other and help each other, and the Slack is one way to do that, and the foundation is ensuring that.
And I just want to give a big shout to a couple of people I know who are listening to this, and that's Chad Swarthout from Electrona, and Will O'Neill from Mid Atlantic, and John Brown from Grove, and my former partner Mark Colleen at Technolutionary. We had a really collegial relationship with all of our quote unquote competitors here in the DC area as consultants, right? Like there are all of these folks out there. I mean, of course I forgot Glenn. I can't believe I forgot Glenn from MacLab, but the best part about the MacAdmins community writ large is that like we're in business, in the same business as a lot of different folks. And I love how collegial the ACN community is, for example, and how much we learn from each other. And the MacAdmins Foundation really wants to shore those kind of things up, and provide great opportunities for future consultants to enter the market, or even just as we all need staff, right? Like we've all gotten crazy busy over the last 5 years, and it's about to get crazy busy again. The way we get new MacAdmins is by training them, or by bringing them up through the community, or by seeing a solution that somebody brings to market, or see somebody who just asks good questions in a public channel and say, hey, we should chat. Maybe you might be great for the consulting world. Maybe I'd love to hire you for, a quarter and see how it works out. Or maybe you're just switching jobs, and, it's a great way to do that. And, I think that the MacAdmins Foundation is here to make sure that the Slack is a great free resource for everybody in the community for as long as we possibly can.
Earlier, Tom, you mentioned taking a page or perhaps several pages out of the NPR book. And I think that's a great idea to offer premiums at different levels for folks like ourselves. I think a lot of people would want to take advantage of that. I know I'd like a lovely tote bag and perhaps an umbrella. So
there is a tote bag. It's in the store now.
Okay.
We opted for the tote bag. We thought because we immediately thought all about, oh man, I got to get my friendly MacAdmins Foundation tote bag. So those are on sale currently today through July 9th. And so sorry if this is going to release after that, but catch us on the next run. We'll have some extras. But the whole plan is that, if folks want to buy merch, that's awesome. That's a great way to contribute. If folks want to put in a rolling donation, we've got, monthly subscriptions, annual subscriptions at varying price points. And we're here to, we're really focused on making sure that we've got all of the different options available to us.
Well, this has been great talking to you guys about the MacAdmins Foundation. We should point our listeners to macadmins.org/donate. So once again, that's macadmins.org/donate to support the MacAdmins Foundation. And, if you've benefited from the Slack, like many of us have many times, I encourage you to donate to support the organization that's helping, foster it into existence and keep it here. And if you haven't checked out the Slack, you really should be on it. So go to macadmins.org, and you can also find a link to the Slack instance there. Thank you all, you guys for joining us today, and the rest of your team for doing the good work of creating the MacAdmins Foundation, keeping the Slack alive, helping steward this community into the future. So thank you very much to Tom Bridge, co-chair, also principal product manager at JumpCloud. That's your day job, Tom. I don't remember if you mentioned that. And listeners, I'm sure have heard of JumpCloud. So that's another kind of hat that Tom wears. Chris Dawe, secretary of the MacAdmins Foundation, also consultant at Wheelwrights in Seattle, the Seattle area, as your day job. So I guess, Chris, you still kind of wear the consulting hat like the rest of us three co-hosts do here on Command Control Power.
Oh, I do indeed.
And Rich Trouton, treasurer, and also day job at SAP, the first three letters in my name. So there's our connection. Thank you very much for joining us on Command Control Power. And listeners, check out macadmins.org.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. It's been grand, and always good to see my friends at Command Control Power.
Jerry does his voices of customers of all kinds.
Am I on the cloud?
Joe spins his